Professor Suisheng Zhao is Professor and Director of the Center for China-US Cooperation at Josef, Korbel School of International Affairs.
We've started the session. I'm sorry. All right.
A founding editor of the Journal of Contemporary China. He's a member of the Board of Governors of the UN Committee of the Council for Security Cooperation in Asia Pacific, a member of National Committee on US-China Relations, and a research associate at the Fairbanks Center for East Asian Research at Harvard University, and an honorary professor at Beijing University, Rome University, Chinese University of International Relations, and Fudan University. I haven't heard about these universities. He's the author and editor of more than 10 books and numerous articles. I think it will take me like a whole day to go through the title of these articles, but I guess what is most exciting piece of information from his CV today is he's going to share with us his latest book, The Dragon Was Back, Transformational Leaders and Dynamics of Chinese Foreign Policy, published by Stanford University in 2022. And it was mentioning that this book has been named one of the Foreign Affairs Best Books of 2024 in the Asia and the Pacific category. And this is the only book on China to receive this honor among all the winners. So it's a very prestigious award. So yes, we are very fortunate to have Professor Zhao. Please join me in welcoming Professor Wang.
Thank you, Professor Wang, for the introduction. In fact, that it was the old CV. Now, if you go to China, you read, in the US, you really don't want to talk too much about your China affiliation. You get trouble. I was in Florida last week, and a faculty member told me he was a National Committee, US-China Relations delegation to Vietnam, South Korea, but his university told them they're supposed to go to China. His university told him the university does not allow their faculty member to travel to China in Florida International University. So I'm not there to tell them I have all those affiliations you mentioned in China. Now I don't put them on my CV anymore. In any case, I'm so thrilled to have this opportunity to talk about my book, which was published a couple of years ago, and try to understand the leadership and the foreign policy making in China. The first question people ask you when you do a book talk normally is why you wrote the book. So my answer to this question normally goes to two aspects. One aspect is on the literature aspect. I'm teaching a class on the making of Chinese foreign and security policy for many years. I could not find a book which covers the whole period of the 70+ years of PRC history in the making of foreign policy. Most books in my book I mentioned were unidimensional and static, meaning that they focus on bilateral relationships between China and certain countries, and on certain regional geographical areas, and on certain issue areas during a certain period. So my book tries to provide a historical in-depth and up-to-date analysis of the making of Chinese foreign and security policy. So I think I touched that because you can see the reviews of my book, which was very flattering, and as Professor Wang mentioned, was selected last year. The second aspect is theoretical. China is rising, and a lot of people a lot of scholars try to understand China's changing foreign policy behavior. Two theories have been used most often to help us or explain the change in the Chinese foreign policy behavior. One is the so-called structural realist theory, which emphasizes relative power and argues that when China's relative power expands, its ambition expands. In other words, increasingly powerful China would inevitably challenge the US power dominance, redefine its relationships with its neighboring countries, become more expensive. This theory could help us understand recent rise in assertive behavior of China in the last 10 or 20 years. But if we extend that to the whole 70+ years of PRC history, we find problems. When China's relative power was constrained, very constrained during the early years of PRC and the Mao Zedong's years, China's foreign policy was very assertive, even confrontational. And China, in my book, identified all the wars China fought. China fought 6 wars during that time, the most in the PRC history, including the war in the Korean Peninsula against the most powerful nation on earth, the US, which by the realist theory not supposed to happen. And in the 1980s, Deng Xiaoping moderated China's foreign policy behavior. But China's relative power did not change that much at that time. And his successors, Jiang Zemin and Hu Jintao, continued moderate foreign policy. But China was recognized at that time as a rising power. In other words, China's relative power increased dramatically during that time. China not supposed to continue the moderate foreign policy during those decades. And Xi Jinping came to office, took a much more confrontational, much more assertive foreign policy. But China's economy slowed down. Even I will argue that stagnated for quite a while. And people argue that Xi Jinping has overplayed his hand. In other words, China set its foreign policy objectives beyond its power, beyond its capacity. So, structural realist theory in this case, looking at the whole PRC history, has problems. Another theory used most often by scholars to explain China's foreign policy behavior is so-called regime type theory, which looks at China's authoritarian system as a cause of China's assertive or confrontational behavior. In other words, China's foreign policy behavior cannot be changed unless there is a regime change. But China's foreign policy, as my book talked about, has a lot of shifts, turns in the 70 years. But authoritarian regime has never been fundamentally changed. So the regime type theory has also some limitations. My book tried to integrate the structural realist theory and regime type theory and intuition, all the theories, and develop a leadership-centered framework. The framework argues that leaders matter in all political systems, but matter more in authoritarian systems. Leaders in democracies are constrained by oppositional parties, by public opinions, by term limits, name it. But authoritarian leaders are not constrained by any of them. Especially in China's Leninist authoritarian system, where the emphasis is hierarchy and discipline. In other words, leaders in the PRC has almost unconstrained power to make foreign policy, especially when they want to make shift in foreign policy direction. The question is, not every PRC leaders has take advantage of those unconstrained power to chart new course of Chinese foreign policy. By the official account in the PRC, there are 5 generations of leaders led by Mao Zedong, Deng Xiaoping, Jiang Zemin, Hu Jintao, and Xi Jinping. They missed 3 of party general secretaries, Hua Guofeng, Zhao Ziyang, and Hu Jintao. So I grouped these 8 leaders into 3 types. One is so-called transformational leaders. These leaders they are game changers with new visions and political wisdoms to navigate the power jungle in the PRC politics and mobilize domestic and international resources to advance their policy agenda. Who are transformational leaders? 3. Mao Zedong, Deng Xiaoping, and Xi Jinping. Each chart a new course for Chinese foreign policy. Mao Zedong, what I call revolutionary foreign policy. In the Chinese official terminology, he meant China to stand up, independent. And Deng Xiaoping charted a developmental foreign policy. In the Chinese official term, meant China rich. And Xi Jinping, in his own words, he is formulating, has taken a big power foreign policy to make China strong. The second type of leaders are transactional leaders. These leaders, they survived, navigate power politics, stay in power, but they stayed also on course set by their predecessors. Who are transaction leaders? Jiang Zemin and Hu Jintao. Each of them stayed 2 terms, 10 years in office successfully. But they also stayed on course set by Deng Xiaoping. And the third type, what I call failed leaders. These leaders, they might have new visions. In fact, I will even argue that Hu Yaobang and Zhao Ziyang, they had some new ideas, new visions. But who cares? You lost power. So these are failed leaders. My book try to document and analyze how transformational leaders, they developed their new visions and navigated the power politics to establish a personal or charismatic power or institutional authority, and how they mobilized domestic resources. Here we're talking about constructing international environment of historical memories, nationalist aspirations, and restructured policy-making institutions to advance their policy agenda, and how they strategically responded to external environment. Here we're talking about global power distribution and also international norms, rules, and institutions. This is the book. I don't want to talk too much about the book now, because if I talk too much about the book, you will not buy it. I want to buy the book to read it. So what I'm going to talk today, the rest of the time, will be how Xi Jinping is part of the book, one chapter of the book, how Xi Jinping has centralized the foreign policy decision power, and what are the foreign policy implications of that power centralization. Before I move on this Xi Jinping's power centralization, I want to give you a little bit background about policy making hierarchy and leadership style in China. The foreign policy making authorities are always centralized in the hands of the paramount leaders or top leaders. But they have to work with a very deep foreign policy bureaucratic hierarchy. At the top is what I call decision-making institutions, the counterparty central committee, which does not meet that often. So they delegate decision-making authorities to the Politburo Standing Committee. These are decision-making institutions. Below that is a very typical China, not Soviet Union. China institutions copied a lot from Soviet Union, but they developed their own very Chinese style of policy making institution called Chinese called the 协调意识机构 policy coordination and consultation institutions. These are those small leadership groups and commissions. They are opaque behind scene organs, very often are ad hoc meetings of those policy principles and met irregularly to help top leaders making decisions in an interdepartmental way. And the third here is those line bureaucracies in the party government and the military. Their functions are gathering information, making policy recommendations, and implementing decisions made at the top by the party. Each of those leaders has a unique leadership style in working with this deep policy-making hierarchy. Mao Zedong, as a founder of the PRC, was what I call crusader, really crusader. He made decisions top down. Disregard all the resistance, including, for example, the Korean War decision. We all now know all the details. A lot of resistance, but he made his mind. Then it just resisted all those resistance, and he did not like bureaucracy. So he let his top lieutenant, Premier Zhou Enlai, who was also concurrently foreign minister, to deal with bureaucracy. He did not have to work with that. He just made his mind, especially on those strategic and national security issues. Deng Xiaoping was very different. He was also very powerful leader, but he was a pragmatic, strong leader. He never held top government party position. He placed his proteges in the front and pulled string behind the scene. And his leadership style was a consensus building. I mean, he took a consensus building process. How did he do that? He basically delegated authorities of routine decision making to those in the front and also to bureaucrats. He automatically ratified those decisions if those people can reach consensus, which could take a while. At those years, I do remember when you study Chinese politics, when Beijing, you find Beijing was more like Washington, other players there. But that's what he did. He stepped in. He stepped in only if those bureaucrats could not reach consensus. So he made decisions in that case. That's so-called delegation by consensus. And Jiang Zemin and Hu Jintao continued this consensus building process under the so-called collective leadership. Jiang Zemin is totally different. Changed all those dynamics. We can argue that Jiang Zemin now is the most powerful leader. Some people say since Mao Zedong. I will argue that since the founding of PRC. And basically, he has eliminated all those potential factional rivals, especially since 2022. The 20th Party's Congress and placed all his lawyers into Politburo Standing Committee and running the country without credible rivals. This has upset a long-standing practice of power balance at top. Actually, Mao Zedong was balanced by Liu Shaoqi, Deng Xiaoping, all those revolutionary comrades. Deng Xiaoping was balanced by Chen Yun and all those elders. Jiang Zemin was balanced by Deng Xiaoping. Hu Jintao was balanced by Jiang Zemin. Who is balancing Xi Jinping? At least I cannot identify any. Maybe there's a Lin Biao there. Someday we'll discover. But I cannot see it at this time. I was thinking maybe Li Qiang, yes, I cannot see it. Maybe Cai Qi does not look like. So I really don't see anyone can identify as a rival, balancer. So the leadership style shifted from consensus building to Xi in command model. And Xi Jinping has emphasized so-called top-level design, 顶层设计, and making decisions from his office. And basically, he is running China's 小组治国 through all those leadership small groups, cutting through bureaucracy, and becomes a chairman of everything, or micromanager of everything. If his hands pulls on, that thing will move. If he does not care, then nothing will happen in China. It's really a very interesting situation. And how Xi has been able to consolidate his power so quickly and centralize the decision-making so successfully. My argument here is that he was very brilliant, or brilliantly reacted to 3 triggers when he took over power. One trigger was, you remember 12, 13 years ago in Beijing, you talk to Chinese elites, people complained. Xi Jinping, Hu Jintao's collective leadership was too undecisive, too divided, to make decisive decisions, to curb corruption, to curb those liberal ideas which undermined the party monopoly of power. At that time, really, people all talk about that. So Xi Jinping came to office, very successfully presented himself as a strong man to cope with the unprecedented challenge that brought down in scale, that brought down the Soviet Union. Remember he talked about that? 没有一人是男儿, the man, I'm the man, 男儿. That's what he talked about at that time. So he successfully consolidated power with the consent of the political elites. A lot of people fought by him at that time. I can remember, I think now, as I hear my generation, I know he's a dictator like I would be if I did not come to the United States. Yeah, we were educated in the same situation. And, but a lot of people fought by him. Second, he was so lucky man. Because when he came to office, there were so many, quite few, very high-profile scandals. 2012, 薄熙来, 周永康, 令计划, all took place in that year or 2. Those people were potentially political rivals to him. So took this opportunity, he launched a very wide-sweeping anti-corruption campaign to serve 2 purposes. One was to gain popularity. Who does not hate corruption? And corruption was so rampant during Hu Jintao's years and Jiang Zemin's years. People were really unhappy with that. He said, I'm doing that. Second, using that opportunity, he purged so many senior officials who could be rivals or undermine his authority. Third trigger was, you remember during 29, when China successfully hosted a Summer Olympic, then financial crisis in the West. The Chinese people became so confident that China was doing so well. Very kind of nationalistic aspirations, but they were also very frustrated by those so-called anti-China forces in the US and Western countries, especially during the Olympic torch relay and also the financial crisis. They thought the US was doomed and they should make a lot of concessions to China, but they did not get it. So a lot of Chinese people were really frustrated about this development. So Xi Jinping came to office using that kind of sentiments to present the China dream of great national rejuvenation. That's the first thing he did, just a week after he took the party general secretary in November 2012. He went to the National Museum of History to give that famous speech to really present to the Chinese people that I'm the leader to bring China back to these lost glories and stand up against those anti-China forces in the US and Western countries. So that's how he consolidated his power and successfully centralized his authority, very successful. His power centralization has been institutionalized in all the three tiers of foreign policy making hierarchy. At top level, he established himself, the top level of decision making institutions. He established himself somehow some kind of cult of personality. When I went to Beijing last month, I had a friend, he was so angry. Why he want to have a cult personality? He's not Mao Zedong. Why should I just accept that? But he did, very successfully. And he expects personal loyalty, just like Trump, President Trump, very similar. As the top principle, norms, guiding in the actions of elites. And what he did here, but I don't want to get into this details. You know all those better than I do. I want to talk about next two levels because those are not discussed that much. At the second level, I talk about the bureaucracy hierarchy, decision-making hierarchy is the policy coordination institutions, leadership small groups, commissions. And these commissions or these leadership groups were built first by Mao Zedong in 1950s. 1958, he built 7. In the foreign policy front, the most long-standing was Central Foreign Affairs Leadership Small Group, 中央外事工作领导小组. But that organization, just like all other leadership small groups, were disbanded during the Cultural Revolution in 1970. And Deng Xiaoping came to office, found so many agencies, so many fragmented institutions. So he restored those leadership small groups to coordinate huge bureaucracy. So Foreign Affairs Leadership Small Group was restored in 1981. And but when China became more involved in international affairs, a lot of issues, a lot of institutions, a lot of crises required a top level coordination. I still remember in the 1990s, a lot of people, even in this country, foreign policy making scholars, we were talking about China, and Chinese scholars also talked about China need something like a National Security Council in the White House to coordinate and also make crisis responses. That happened 1999 when the NATO bombing of Chinese embassy took place. And Jiang Zemin discovered they need national security coordination. So he built a new top-level leadership small group called Central National Security Leadership Small Group in 2000. And then in around 2010, the maritime disputes between China and Japan, China, and South Asian countries, South China Sea, became very intensified. So many institutions got involved. China said 九龙戏水, 9 dragons playing on the water, maritime arena. So Hu Jintao built another institution called Central Protecting Maritime Rights and Interest Leadership Small Group in 2010. But the problem for those leadership small groups was they did not have regular staff support. And they could not make regular policy, not as a team, to make foreign policy elaboration for the top leaders. They relied upon different line government and party agencies for their research report. More importantly, they relied upon this office, 中央外办 Central Foreign Affairs Office, for staff support. That institution itself was small. So they suffered from making regular high-level policy coordination. And Xi Jinping came to office, quickly realized this problem, decided to strengthen, to enhance policy coordination at top level, to enhance, to advance his big power foreign policy. What he did, first thing was to build a very powerful, high-level national security institution called, how to translate that, the 国家安全委员会, I translate as national security, you can say state security, but the National Security Commission. This commission was created in 2013 and followed his new concepts of national security, which was called holistic national security, 总体国家安全观. What is holistic? Basically, he tried to integrate internal security and external security. That his speech 2014, that which published, this organization not talk that well. I tried to figure out, I went reading or asking other people about where the location, who are those people, and I'm figuring out now. But in any case, it's a 2024 was the first speech he gave talking about this organization. And he gave 11 aspects of national security as part of his holistic national security concept. And the key for national security concept is 政治安全, Chinese say, political security, which means regime security. So the emphasis, since its founding, was in fact domestic security. And those external security are important only when they are relevant to internal security, such as Hong Kong issue, Xinjiang issue, Tibet issue, and this type of external threat to the internal regime legitimacy. Then this institution naturally shifted in the process since 2013. Its priority from integrate internal and external security to mostly internal security. Then in 2018, when there was a reorganization of the Chinese bureaucracy, Xi Jinping upgraded Central Foreign Affairs small group into Central Foreign Affairs Commission. What's the difference between a commission and a leadership small group? Functionally, I really don't see that much difference, but commission is more formal, more bureaucratic. And Xi Jinping himself is a chairman of this commission. A Politburo member, Wang Yi, is office director of the Central Foreign Affairs Commission. You see how high level it is. Other than building new institutions and other institutional small groups, Xi Jinping also called upon very high level foreign affairs 工作会议 work conferences. Before him, only 3 such conferences were held by Mao Zedong and Jiang Zemin, Hu Jintao each. But he already called upon 4 times. And also he restructured the meeting of Chinese diplomatic envoys from every 5 years to every year. All those Chinese ambassadors were called upon back to Beijing to listen to his talks, unify their thinking. Very important to let them know what he wants Chinese diplomats to be. And hold at high level also these work conferences to let them know what his foreign policy priorities, foreign policy agendas are. At bureaucratic level, he did 2 things. One is politicization, and the other is enlargement of Chinese foreign policy bureaucracies. Chinese diplomats, just like American diplomats and many other countries for China since Deng Xiaoping's years, became professionals. At the founding of PRC, if you study Chinese foreign policy, diplomatic policy making, you know, Chinese ambassadors, Chinese diplomats were transferred from military, journals, top officers, no longer. Since 1980s, they are elite university graduates, Peking University, my alma mater, and Beijing Foreign Study University, all those places. They were trained foreign language and international studies. And they followed certain professional norms, then became professionals. But ironically, the problem was that Mao did become professionalized, less politically important they became. During early years, the Chinese foreign minister, all post-foreign minister positions were Politburo Standing Committee member Zhou Enlai, Politburo member Chen Yi, and vice premier and state councilor. Then 20 years ago, they lost all those kind of positions. And Chinese diplomats, they worked long hours overseas, they're not paid well, and served so many bosses. The morale of Chinese diplomats were low. If you talk to them in Beijing, they were not as lucrative as those economic officers or some other ministries. And Xi Jinping came to office, quickly realized this problem. And he increased the budget for diplomacy, give them more resources and authority. In the Chinese embassy, for example, you're talking to embassy people, they will tell you the change. Ambassador now in charge. The Commerce Ministry, all other ministries, the budget centralized in foreign ministry. The price is you are no longer professionals. You are political lawyers. You have to follow the party's principle loyal to me, the leader, the call of the leader. You can see Xi Jinping's speeches to the diplomats. That's emphasis. Another thing he did was to enlarge foreign policy bureaucracy. Other than the state diplomacy, the state and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Commerce, all those state agencies, he gave a lot of authorities and also resources to party diplomacy and the military diplomacy. We all know the party diplomacy was behind the thing in the past. propaganda department, liaison department, and United Front department. You're behind the scene. Now they are pushed all to the forefront to tell China stories, 讲中国故事, and try to correct the misperceptions or mistakes of international community or its foreign celebrities. And they distinguish their function as taking a non-term function instead of daily operation of the diplomacy. And you see, that's why America now worried about the influence operation of China. Who are doing that influence operation? United Front Department, propaganda department, these kind of party organs, go forefront, military, diplomacy. Military almost lost control during Hu Jintao and Jiang Zemin's years. Xi Jinping came to office, tightened his control, reorganized the military bureaucracy, and made a lot of efforts to have military cooperations with foreign militaries, joint exercise with Russia, for example, and joint security workshops and forums, name it. Chinese military all over the world try to be. And more importantly, he centralized military diplomacy. For example, the military exchanges used to be within the defense ministry, international exchange department in the Ministry of Defense. In 2018, I upgraded that office from Defense Ministry to Central Military Commission, CMC, which is much higher level and also directly under his control. Now, final question here I have. What are foreign policy implications of all these power centralization? I found a few of them important to mention. One is that Xi Jinping's big power foreign policy has very strong, much stronger institutional support than his predecessors. So he could successfully chart a new course for Chinese foreign policy direction. And he made so many new initiatives, especially the first term. This is the third term. Look, first term, he traveled more than Obama, Trump combined internationally. But he did not. Now he's old, like me, very old now. But he traveled a lot. He made a lot of new issues, Belt Road Initiative, AIB, and shared future for mankind. Many of them built artificial islands. A lot of things took place in his first 2 terms. And also, he shifted China's position with the United States, no longer accommodate the US unilateral demand without conditions, for example. And put together, the first foreign country he visited was Russia. We all know that, 2024, not 2014. And built, and I just published an article yesterday, built successfully on anti-hegemonic United Front with Russia, North Korea, Iran, and those countries. First, try to stand up against the United States and using all other Taiwan issues, many issues. Second, he totally changed the incentive structure of Chinese diplomats. As I mentioned earlier, Chinese diplomats were professionals no longer. They are warriors today. We all know that. Xi Jinping called for fighting spirit, 斗争精神, to win diplomatic matters. Diplomacy, you win. How can you win a diplomacy? What is the job of diplomats? To negotiate, to give a take, to make a compromise. You win. Nobody can win. You can just make deals that Trump talked about. Make deals. If you win, that's military job. I joke to my colleagues in China, if that's what you win, they say, whole national interests. They cannot compromise, cannot negotiate. All you need is a military. You no longer need diplomats anymore. But in any case, the incentive structure is totally changed for Chinese diplomats to show their fighting spirit, to become wolf warriors. Example, Wang Yi, when he was ambassador to Japan, he was known as a professional. And I met him this morning at the China Post with Steve Goldstein's people. Met him in Beijing. He was very polite. He asked a lot of good questions. Your scholars from the US, what do you think of this and Taiwan issue? Also very professional. Modest. You know who is now Wang Yi like? Totally different person. Ministry of Foreign Affairs used to receive those calcium tablets to strengthen their backbone. They recast themselves as wolf warrior ministry. Third, with this kind of unchecked power, that's why we talked about Xi Jinping's overreach. He could overreach that objectives beyond his China's relative power. That structuralism problem, which caused pushback from US and many other countries, making enemies in many other countries. And this case, he recognized China's external environment deteriorated. He emphasized that several times, not several times, a lot. 风高浪急, all those kind of description of China's international environment. So in that case, he elevated security to the top priority over economic development. There is a conflict between economic development and security. His choice is national security and regional security. That's very different from his predecessors. And that also caused economic slowdown to a certain extent, because a lot of foreign business fund investment environment in China deteriorated. They left China. And China is much more kind of isolated and stagnated. There are a lot of problems. China, what I want to argue that, at least before Trump is creating a really good opportunity for him. But before Trump, I will argue that China's big power diplomacy suffered serious setback. This is a picture I really like. I was in China in 2023 and 2017, the BRI Global Forum, the summit level. There's so many heads of state there. And 17, still quite few. 2023, I was in Beijing. I saw this photo. Wow, they include their spouses. That picture tells a lot about that. In conclusion, what will happen with Xi Jinping's centralization of power? Yes, he did that. Centralized, consolidated his power very successfully and chart a new course. Then what does that mean for China's future of foreign policy? Nobody knows. But for two aspects, I'm sure every leader makes mistake. Xi Jinping made a lot of mistakes in the last 13, 20 years. And also because he had that power, he could make course correction without pushback internally. He did that. COVID, zero COVID. He did not realize until November 2022. Oh, I heard some young people are not happy with my policy. You turn overnight without any preparation. Nothing happened in China. He said he will not have stimulus package for economy. He did that last year, end of last year and early this year. And he was so assertive against America, but now he found last year or 2 years, he found China still lead America. So he softened his tone in China in the last 2 years. No pushback. And a lot of these kind of cost changes. But on the other hand, I'm a little bit concerned because of his power centralization, minimized those who could tell him truth. Anyone tells him truth will be purged if he did not like it. If he is not accurate. 妄议中央, that's what they said. It's he's making decisions in the somehow just like President Putin in the echo chamber of if he makes his mind, which is wrong, nobody stop him, which could cause intended or unintended consequences of no return. Have an issue. Everybody asks, whenever I go to give a talk, people always ask if he will take Taiwan by force. Nobody knows. I don't know if he knows at this time. But if he makes decision, nobody can stop him. Hopefully he will not make that decision. Okay, I stop here. Thank you so much.